Thank you, everyone, and welcome to the fourth and final webinar of this series of webinars about peace building, conflict transformation, and positive peace, brought to you by the 50% in partnership with the Positive Peace Society. It is for us, my name is Matias Lara. I'm one of the co-directors of the 50%, and it is for us a great joy and a great honor to be sharing this space with you. We have learned so much in the past 4 months. We have learned so much about the challenges we're facing, about what needs to be overcome, and how we can better understand what peace and conflict means, and how we can think of a better future where violence and armed conflicts have no place. So thank you for all of you who has been walking this path along with us. Now I'll pass it to Rajesh to tell us a little bit more about our speakers today and of course about the PPS.
Okay. Thank you, Matthias, for the introduction, and thank you everyone for joining to our fourth webinar series between the Positive Peace Society and the 50% Club. Before we begin, please allow me to introduce myself and allow me to introduce what Positive Peace Society is. So my name is Rajesh Rawal. I'm from India. I'm currently a second-year master's student at Hiroshima University, specializing in international peace and coexistence program. I'm also the president of Positive Peace Society Club. We are a student-led club in Hiroshima University, a relatively new club. We started our journey last year on September 21st, on the Day of International Peace. Our inspiration for starting this club came from the intriguing concept of positive peace. So the Institute of Economic and Peace defines positive peace as conditions which lead to sustainable and long-lasting peace. These conditions include good governance, strong institutions, respect for human rights, and many other conditions. Today, we have two wonderful speakers and experts for our topic on understanding and building positive peace. So let me take the honor of introducing our first speaker for today's webinar. She's someone who has completed her PhD in International Education and Development Program from Hiroshima University. She was also a fellow student at Network of Research and Peace and Sustainability, NERPS, at Hiroshima University. She's currently working at Indonesia's National Research Institute and Innovation Agency. Today, she will be talking about harnessing Indonesia's local wisdom for building positive peace. Her topic will cover how cultural heritage can contribute to more inclusive, equitable, and peaceful society. So please join me in introducing our first speaker, Rahmatika Dewi. Floor is yours, Tika-san.
Thank you so much, Rajesh-san, for the kind introduction, and hello everyone. So today, my title of for my today's speaking is harnessing Indonesian local wisdom for building positive peace. So basically, my talk today will be about the education field, but I will try to connect with the positive peace, or if I can say it's a peace education or peace building in education or peace pedagogy, something like that. So I'm Rahmatika Dewi, and currently I work at the National Research and Innovation Agency, specifically at the Research Center for Education. And I belong to the group, research group, namely the ethno and neuropedagogy. So everyone, it's a very, I don't know, but if I can ask you, what does it mean to actually be peace? I think, yeah, we have been familiar with the concept of negative and positive peace. So what is it? The choices can be considered peace to be merely an absence of violence, or does there need to be a series of conditions that create a more peaceful way of life? And we know that, I think it's also he is also not the very, not the, like I think he is this person in the slide also is very familiar in your field. You have been familiar with this person, Johann Galtung, the one, or we call it as the father of the modern peace and conflict studies, and he already talked about the definitions of peace, like a peace is the absence of or reduction of violence of all kinds, and the peace also is the non-violent and creative conflict transformation based on him. So he also said that conflict will always exist and they may not necessarily be completely resolved, but the way to deal with conflict can be changed without resorting to violence. So to stop conflict, we can use the non-violent actions or practices, or we can say that we use positive peace, we create a positive peace. So if we talk about violence, Galton's also already talk about the form of violence, in which there are two kinds of violence, the direct violence and the indirect violence. The direct violence here is the one that is visible, that the one that we can see. The conflict can be seen, like hitting, beating, and like a war and other conflict that we can see directly, something like that. And the indirect violence here can be both cultural and structural violence. So culture here is related to the cultures, or for example, the beliefs or cultures in the context that can be a factor or factors for indirect violence or the conflict happen. Like, for example, the religious justifications, gender norms, racial stereotypes, and many others. And also there is also structural violence here. It's the condition in which the structure or there is a different position between agents, between individuals that make or can be factors of conflict happen, like the economic inequality, healthcare disparities, educational inequality, and so on and so forth. So these are the types of violence. Also, if there is an absence of direct violence, it means that is the negative peace. And if there is an absence of the cultural or structural violence, meaning that is the positive peace. So if we see from the definitions of the negative and positive peace from the IEP, Institute for Economic and Peace, as Rajesh also already said it before, that the negative peace is the absence of violence, the absence of the direct violence, the war, the absence of war, the absence of fear, and so on and so forth. So it's this is like making war stop. But this negative peace doesn't address the underlying issues of the conflict itself and may leave the structural and cultural violence intact. And this negative peace also still can be a potential, or there is a potential for conflict to resurgence if although the war already stopped. And the positive peace is different. Based on the Institute for Economic and Peace, it is the attitudes, the institutions, and the structures that can create and sustain peaceful societies. So it addresses the root causes of the conflict itself, and it promotes the sustainable peace. So it's more than the absence, more than the stop of the war, but it also presents the, there is a social justice, equality and harmony that happen or that arise after the or after the after this kind of a positive peace there. I mean, if the positive peace exists there. So based on this Institute of Economic and Peace, there are also 8 pillars that work together, work interlink each other to build the positive peace. The first is a well-functioning government, equitable distribution of resources, free flow of information, good relations with neighbors, high level of human capital, acceptance of rights of others, low levels of corruptions, and the last is sound business environment. Here, this is the the condition of Indonesia. So I think the participants here, some of them are also Indonesians, and perhaps, and I believe that they are very familiar with these informations, in which Indonesia has over 700 languages, and then over 1,300 ethnic groups, and also many religions, including Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, and others. And we can see here, you can also imagine with these conditions, many ethnic groups, religions, it's like Indonesia has a high risk of conflict. And even in a one city, we have many religions. Even in one family, we have many religions. Like in my family from my husband, some of them are Christian, some of them are Muslim. So it is a risk for us to be, I mean, a risk for a conflict happen in this situation. That's why if we connect with the definitions of positive peace, although there is no war anymore in Indonesia, and there is no war in my family, for example, but there is still a conflict that can happen in my family or in my city or in my village because of these conditions, the diversity of Indonesia. Like in these pictures, this is the war, the conflict between ethnic groups, and then the conflict between religions in Indonesia. So this condition is also happen in the educational sectors, in educational field, and it's very bad to say that actually based on the school safety climate data, the data from the Ministry of Education in Indonesia, the school safety climate in Indonesia is decreasing, especially in 2023. So if we can say that actually school must be the place for safety for children, must be the place for children to be happy, to learn together, to play together with the with friends, with teachers. But the condition of the environment in school environment in Indonesia nowadays is bad because of the violence are there. And if you can see here, the violence in the school environment from 2021 up to 2023 are increasing. And at least there are 136 cases of violence in the educational environments were reported in the media throughout 2023, involving a total of 134 perpetrators and 339 victims, 19 of whom even died because of the violence in the school environment. For example, here, an elementary school students in a Gresik city in East Java was reported to have his eye poked by a classmate, and then a teacher at the senior high school in Demak city was slashed by his students. It's very, like, I cannot say that it's very sad to heard about these kind of cases, and that elementary school student in Padang Pariaman who tragically died after being bullied and burned by his classmates. And also this condition is not, didn't happen only between student and student, but also between student to teachers, and even between teachers to students, like a teacher cut the hair of several female students for not wearing hijabs according to the school regulations in Lamongan, and many others. This is some of the pictures. And actually, the government of the Indonesian already made regulations for this, for the violence that happened in the school environment in Indonesia. The Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology issued ministerial regulations number 46 of 2023 on the preventions and handling of violence in educational units. And there are two types of programs that have been made by the Ministry of Education. The first is they ask the schools in every cities to make a task force prevention and handling of violence team or task force in educational institutions, and there is also guideline for that. And then the second one, there's also a bullying prevention program or roots. It's called roots in the independent curriculum, the new curriculum in Indonesia. But again, based on the data from the dashboard of the prevention and handling of violence team and task force at the district, city, and provincial levels, not many educational institutions have established these task force. And then the Roots program, although it has been widely implemented in schools, in which some students have been the agents for giving campaign for the peaceful societies, and then non-violent, some campaigns for decreasing violence, something like that. But its impact has not been significantly observed, as you see the evidence by the continued increase in violent cases still in 2023 and 2024. So what is the best solution actually? So some scholars in Indonesian context, I got this from Indonesian context, only from the scholars in Indonesian, already studied about the way to decrease the violence in Indonesian schools environment. And most of them agreed that the local wisdom, philosophies, or local knowledges in Indonesian context can be one of the strategies to decrease and to give, or to be has the potential to be as one of the strategies for the peace education in Indonesia. Like here, Gunawan said that the local tradition, nasi tumpeng, this is the eating tradition, provide grassroots level opportunities for interfaith dialogue and conflict resolutions, reinforcing the importance of cultural practices in peace building. And then the model of peace education in elementary school based on local wisdom of Kampung Naga. This is in West Java. It's also can be one of the solutions. and then many others like local cultures, poetic expressions of Goet, and then Pelagandong, and then Sentani indigenous community in Papua, and then people's Maya Salam traditions, and many others. So based on those scholars' idea, I also agree with that I agree that as this concept of culture of peace also varies in each particular regions or cultures. So it is necessary to look for an approach that is unique and appropriate to the context on that country. So I think peace education based on local wisdom is a multifaceted approach that integrates cultural values and traditional practices to foster harmony and conflict resolutions within communities. And it is not only can be, it is linked and has the potential to build a positive peace, not only negative peace, not only the absence of conflict, but also can make the peace sustain. That's my idea. So if I can connect between the local wisdom in Indonesia and the positive peace pillars, 8 pillars of the positive peace, I can say first, pillar, well-functioning government. In Indonesia, we have the traditional government systems such as musyawarah or deliberations and gotong royong or mutual cooperations. And these practices, I believe that can encourage inclusive governance and ensure that the voices of all community members are heard. Because in musyawarah, we gather the people together in a one place and we make, or we, for example, if there is a conflict, we make we make a resolutions for that conflict using musyawarah. And it's still happen in, especially in villages in Indonesia, including in my village. And then sound business environment. Indonesian local wisdom also promotes ethical business practices and sustainability, and the concept of adat or customary law often includes guidelines for fair trade, resource management, and community welfare. So we have the concept of adat here in Indonesia as the local wisdom, and we can adhere to these traditional values. Businesses can operate in ways that are socially and environmentally responsible. And then the third one is the equitable distributions of resources. We also have the principle of kekeluargaan. Kekeluargaan is a family-like mutual care. We, for example, I'm as a Javanese ethnic, I myself sometimes feel that I have a kekeluargaan with the person from Java. That's kekeluargaan, and it is central to many Indonesian communities. And this value, I believe, can promote the equitable distributions of resources. So we feel like we have same situation, we have the same cultures, we have one family, so we have the empathy to each other, and that can promote the equitable distributions of resources. And then the fourth one, acceptance of rights of others. We also have the philosophy of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, or unity in diversity, that fosters acceptance and tolerance of different cultures, religions, and ethnicities. And this acceptance is crucial for building a peaceful societies where the rights of all individuals are upheld. And then we also have silaturahmi. Silaturahmi is strengthening social ties. And these practices can encourage positive interactions, conflict resolutions, and cooperation among neighbors, which are essential for maintaining peace at the grassroots level. And I also remember that in my research, in my dissertation research, previously, I can get the concept of solidarity capital, in which this is the capital that most activated in the time of COVID-19 for the successful transition from education to work, in which one of the example is the neighbors help the people, the person, the graduates to get a job, to make a successful transition from education to work. It's also one of the local wisdom in Indonesia that can be an example to build a positive peace. And then the sixth one is a free flow of information. Also, the practice of musyawarah, as I said before, is also ensures that information is shared openly among community members, fostering trust and informed decision making. And this free flow of information supports a well-informed and engaged populace, which is vital for the positive peace. And also high levels of human capital. Local wisdom often includes a strong emphasis on education and the transmissions of knowledge, and traditional learning system and oral traditions ensure that valuable knowledge and skills are passed down through generations, contributing to high levels of human capital and empowering individuals to contribute to societal well-being. And the last one is the low level of corruption. So basically, Indonesia has the principle of amanah and kejujuran. Although some of the people, sometimes cannot make it as the principle that must be, practiced. It must be make it as a practices in a life. But yes, Indonesia has these principles, and these principles is one of the pillar of low level of corruptions within the positive peace. So everyone, back to the conditions of Indonesia, as I said before, actually the violence cases is not only in the school environments, but also in the societies as a general. Like in this one is the West Java as the highest province that has the highest number of violence cases in Indonesia. And actually, as I said before, that Indonesia has a good and has the positive local wisdom that can be used for the positive peace, as the positive peace pillars can be support the positive peace pillars, but then still the violent cases happen in many provinces. And if we see, or if we talk about West Java, or we call it as a Sundanese land, it is believed that this land have the guidelines for ethics, character, or an anti-violent identity since the time of the ancestors. In general, the Sundanese people, maybe here there is a Sundanese people. Vera, my colleague Vera Wulandari is a Sundanese person. I don't know if she is still here or not. So in general, the Sundanese people are cheerful, friendly, or we call it somea, and we have the local wisdom of somea, hadeka, sema, often smiling, gentle, and so on and so forth. And they also have the expressions of Islam teh Sunda, Sunda teh Islam, and also some moral goodness in the ancient Sundanese manuscript, Sahyang Siksa Kadang Karesian, Amanat Galunggung, Sewaka Dharma, and many others like Sili Asi, Sili Asa, Sili Asu, and others philosophy. But then West Java is, in 2023, got the highest number of violent cases. This is a very like the contradiction condition. That's why that condition make me and my team in the ethno and neuropedagogy research group try to see what happened with this condition. So we try to make a project maybe perhaps for this year and 2 coming years, 2024, 2026 up to 2020, 2025 up to 2026, that we want to try to explore the local wisdom of Panchaniti. And this is one of the local wisdom that is believed as the local wisdom or the non-violent local wisdom in West Java. But this local wisdom is still rarely explored, and there are many missing informations about the definitions and the root of this local wisdom. So my team and I will try to explore this local wisdom and try to, after that, we will try to make a model for the educational, perhaps for the educational, I don't know, teaching and learning process later, or maybe for the curriculum as the, like one of the model that can be used for the peace education. So the government not only made the program for campaign, but also specifically use the model that is real, can be implemented in the teaching and learning process. So I think that's all from me. So in the end, I want to say that in Indonesia context, we have models, we have capitals, we have local wisdom that we can use as the source for the conflict resolution, for the peace educations, and for building the positive peace in the societies. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tika-san, for this wonderful presentation. It was very insightful. So before we move on to Q&A session, I would like to introduce our second speaker for today's webinar. So our second speaker is currently a second-year doctoral student at Hiroshima University. His current research focuses on dominant party politics, a qualitative case study on United Malayas National Organization, UMNO. His other research interest covers human rights, regionalism in ASEAN, and other social movements. Today, he will be presenting on reflection on Palestinian solidarity movement from perspective of positive peace from Hiroshima to Gaza. So please join me in welcoming our second speaker, Aaron Denison.
Thank you so much, Rajesh. So can you see my slides?
Yes, Aaron.
All right, cool. All right, so thank you so much again for joining. So my presentation today is based on actually a working paper that I'm currently writing. It's a very contentious topic for many, I know. But it depends on which perspective you look at it from. But I think it's an issue that should be discussed, especially in this webinar and this format where we're talking about peace. So the title is From Hiroshima to Gaza, a reflection of the Palestinian solidarity movement from the perspective of positive peace. And yeah, this presentation of this paper is not related to my dissertation. It's something of a passion of me, of human rights, social movements. So this is the presentation agenda. Basically, I will be it's a general introduction of the movement around the world, and then the movement in Tokyo, and then how is the movement different in Hiroshima, and also factors for the lack of engagement in the Palestinian cause. Why is there a reluctance? Why is there some who are not comfortable joining the movements? And then we'll end with the conclusion. So it's great that actually Tika-san has already made all the theoretical points just now, so I don't need to go into that. So we can just go into the case study. So so across the globe, right, we have seen large number of people gather in public spaces to express their discontent of the continuous assault and destruction in Gaza, as well as also the expulsion of Palestinians from their homes in West Bank as well. And this is, of course, so this movement you see is sort of enhanced by what happened after October 7th as a result of the attack by Hamas, which is, of course, should be condemned for their terror attacks, yes. And also, but the continuous bombardment of Gaza, right, by the IDF has led to dissent among many, and this is what you see. So on your left is the movements in DC, Washington DC. On your right is the movement in Cape Town in South Africa, and in some instances, these demonstrations have escalated into violence, right? It could have been due to, you know, emotions, lack of coordination among people protesting, maybe some bad apples who instigate, right? As well as even authorities maybe trying to restrict these movements themselves. So how has the movement been in Japan, right? But before going into that, I would just like to have a short background about Japan-Palestine relations. So Japan supports two-state solution. It historically has provided support in terms of humanitarian aid as well as development. There are schools in Gaza that has been built by the Japanese government. JICA is an important institution that has been doing a lot of restoration works in Gaza as well as West Bank. So in a sense that Japan sort of understand the Palestinian plight, you could say. They know what's happening, right? They know what's happening. And even after October 7th, you can see that there has been assistance, humanitarian aid provided by JICA as well as other agencies in collaboration with JICA as well as the UN as well. And this is the Japanese Foreign Ministry has at times, you know, issued statements about the humanitarian crisis, about the illegal settlements in the West Bank. But then the challenge is politically in terms of the recognition. That's the gap. The recognition of the Palestinian state. That's number one. Number two is calling for ceasefire, which has been sort of difficult as well, and also calling what's happening a genocide. So that's the gap, right? You see. And then this is where now we move to how, so if the government doesn't do that, then you rely on social movements to do it for you, right? So then the question is there really a lack of engagement in the question of the Palestinian movement or the Gaza movement in Japan, right? Because we don't hear much about it, right? Compared to other countries where you can see thousands of people on the street, many people just, you know, rallying, calling for the end of the genocide and things like that. And I don't think there is that Japan's solidarity movement is lacking. I just think that it's different. It's different in a sense that I think it embodies positive peace because it sort of opposes the structure and culture of violence. Because protests can be violent sometimes, right? Breaking windows, you know, you can be violent, and we have seen it being violent, right, in other countries. I think, and then in Japan as well, it's also, I think one of the pillars is like you accept the rights of others, right? You don't shove opinions down people's throat. You don't do that in Japan, right? It's very different in the sense that even foreigners in Japan, right, when they protest, there's always, so this is where foreigners are being good neighbors, right? They do it the Japanese way, right? You protest based on how the Japanese society would protest. So the movement here is very distinct because it sort of has a few stages where you can see it. So it's more of especially in terms of conflicts like overseas conflicts, there is lack of knowledge about the issue. So in order to show dissent or protest, they usually do things like singing, chanting, painting. In a sense, so I'll give you the examples later. So there's a mix between gatherings and protests. You gather, you sing, you chant together. So it's not a protest per se. That's the first stage. It's not a protest, it's a gathering, right? And then you have exhibitions where you have exhibitions about the cause. What is Palestine about? What's Gaza about? What's happening? And then you have workshops. And then the last is then protests. So you go through all these other stages first before you protest. And why you go through the other stages is because you want them to understand the cause. And even Japanese people want to understand the cause first and have fun at the same time. I mean, I know, and when I was speaking to a Palestinian activist in Tokyo, when I was interviewing her for this paper, she said that, yeah, I know fun is not the right word, but with what's I know it's what's happening in Gaza, it's not fun, but for us here is to make it as interesting as possible so that they understand the cause in a different way, right? So so here are just a few examples of the Palestinian solidarity movements in Tokyo. I've just been to one of them because going from Hiroshima to Tokyo, that's a huge challenge because of distance. But I've been to one where, this is one interesting one, where people just gather and they just paint tears, which is, it's blood. So tears of Palestinians who have died from the years of destruction. So you can see people really just coming in, painting, and then singing, chanting. So it's not so much, this is in Shibuya. It's a very crowded train station in Tokyo. So this is one example. Then this is, you have exhibition on your left. It's an exhibition about Palestine. What is it about? What's the country about? What's the resources there are in Palestine? And then on your right is Teach for Palestine. So this is a collaboration between the embassy in the Palestinian embassy in Tokyo with an embroidery company. So they just embroidered Palestinian colors. So just to get to know Palestine as well that way. So these are quite interesting movements. And this is an interesting one. So this is the final stage. So after going through all the exhibition, workshops, gatherings, then this is the last one, which is the protest. This is an interesting one because you have boycott movements like McDonald's, Starbucks, right? But sometimes that's not relatable for some. But this one is quite relatable. Itochu is actually a company that signed a memorandum with Elbit Systems. So Elbit System is a defense contractor from Israel. And when October 7th happened, the network against Japan's arms trade. So this is not related to the Palestinian movement, but it's an arms trades movement already existed in Japan. They joined forces with the Palestinian movement to sort of hand over a memorandum to Itochu, the company, as well as held protests at the Itochu office, which eventually they actually ended ties with the company in Israel. Why is this interesting? Because you see a collaboration. So when in Japan, where you feel you need to find a common ground by an existing movement, which is already against arms trades, and then you bring in the Palestinian movement together, you find a common goal, then you go, and it's more successful in that way. So there needs to be something related to the Japanese society. If not, then it's difficult to understand the movement. So yeah, so this is an interesting one. So what about Hiroshima? So if it's challenging in a huge city like Tokyo to have a huge solidarity movement, imagine how it is in Hiroshima. Because Hiroshima has had the background of being hit by the destructive atomic bomb. We all know that. But the solidarity movement in Hiroshima is also very different. The stages are also a bit different because there's not much of large-scale protests, but there's a mix of using symbolism. The peace flame in Hiroshima is very symbolic. We have the flame which is near the Peace Park, which will continue to burn on until all nuclear weapons are destroyed. So it's very symbolic in that sense. And then it's very solemn. In Tokyo, it's very noisy. In Hiroshima, it's solemn where you reach the park, the Peace Memorial Park. It's a very solemn moment for everyone. Everyone will be sitting on the bench, just walking around. So it's different. Then you have also exhibition and films as well on how you talk about the solidarity movement. Symbolism of the atomic bomb dome. Sorry, I forgot the word dome there. The dome is very symbolic in a sense that it provides a very powerful sort of image of any sort of movements actually. And then you end with the peaceful march. So you see the difference there. So examples. So yeah, so this is one example. The candlelight vigil. Like I said, the flame is very powerful. And people just come to the dome, light the candle, and then they can actually just stand at the dome for however long they want, holding up message cards. That's one way of showing solidarity, showing movements. Then the next one is you have the Palestinian Solidarity Week, where the public learn about the country, learn about the state, learn about Palestine. And along with the Cultural Week, there's a peaceful march for Palestine. I think here you should see the difference in the language, right? Just now in Tokyo, protests, right? Boycott. The language here is peaceful march. So the language is different as well in Hiroshima because there is an acceptance of peace and you have to respect the space as well around the area. And I've also actually heard like some atomic bomb survivors also speak about what's happening in Gaza. And you would not know this if you don't have attended like sessions in the Peace Memorial Museum as well, which has great events as well. And also shout out to events held at Hiroshima University. I think Positive Peace Society had a really good event to commemorate the Palestinian cause when they had the movie screening. That's one way of how people may not want to talk about the issue directly, but through a film, they might address the film at the same time address what's happening in Palestine. So that's a brilliant initiative by PPS. And then you have Hiroshima University CORP, International Student Committee, also having a documentary screening as well to sort of, again, spread awareness. So that's the most important, spread awareness about the issue. And here is the reason. So I spoke to a few, while again writing this paper, working on the paper, I spoke to a few, including Rajesh-san as well. We spoke, as well as some Palestinian activists in Hiroshima, as well as in Tokyo, about why there's a lack of engagement in the Palestinian cause in the first place. So these are some of the answers that I sort of got from the many people I spoke with. Protest is seen as a taboo in Japan due to the past history. If you have time later, just go and Google Tokyo University riots. You will find that it's a taboo because it's seen as something, a movement of the left. That's one. and it's seen as related to political parties, political movements. So that's why sometimes there is a reluctance. And second, expressing political thought can be seen as a risk, because they prefer to keep it to themselves if they have any kind of thoughts. Putting it out there is something that it's very, you don't see many. Even some of my Japanese friends, among friends we talk, but when it's out there in a larger space, they just are not comfortable doing it. Lack of knowledge, actually, also about Palestinian history, due to its complicated nature of understanding the historical narrative around it. So that's another reason why that, because for Japanese society, you go into an initiative knowing fully what it is about. If you don't know it, then you just don't engage, right? So that's why the awareness is very important. That's why they're more comfortable going for exhibitions, going for, trying Palestinian food, for example, watching movies, those kind of things. Fourth is there's sort of like an inward rather than outward looking, because for them, for some, they say that the cause in Hiroshima is not ended yet. Like the cause is, they're still fighting a cause, which is for the end of the destruction of nuclear weapons, right? That's still there. So for them, they prefer to look at the cause inside rather than focus on the causes or movements on the outside that's happening. So that's one. Fifth is fear of deportation. I mean, that's what a lot of my foreign friends said, especially in a small crowd. In Tokyo, maybe you might get away with it, but in Hiroshima, it's such a small crowd, there might be a risk. So that's the fear of that. And another interesting one is the lack of conversation about the issue in local news. There is not much, people didn't talk about it much in the local news. And whatever you see is basically about the narrative, the Western narrative is what you see in the local news here in Japan. So that's also, so there is a lack of freedom of information, you could say, right? In that sense. So in conclusion, so that's all for me. So in conclusion, I think the solidarity movement in Japan, I think especially in Hiroshima, is very distinct, very different compared to the ones in other countries. While Tokyo, as a large city, can attract people sometimes. But the movement in Hiroshima is different in a sense that it's more, like I said, it's now solemn, with a careful choice of words when they use, such as peaceful rallies, march, not protest. Candlelight vigils is very important because of the symbolism of the light. And these strategies, I think, are very much in line. The strategies of the solidarity movements, especially in the Palestinian case, I think in line with the approach of positive peace, whereby there is an opposition to structures and cultures of violence, right? You don't want violence. You want to make it as comfortable as possible for your protesters and the people around you as well, right? And I think this can actually be a lesson for others, for other countries as well, who sometimes, I'm not sure, I mean, some people might not be sure, like we are not sure of whether, how do we, we want to talk about a certain cause, but we don't know, right? So these kind of, you don't need to have massive gimmicks, right? Just educational awareness sometimes is very much enough to actually just get the message out there. So that's all from me. Thank you very much.